Hello and a very warm welcome to Bharata First. You're watching UPSC Corner. I'm Frank Pereira. Since you're here, please like the video, subscribe, hit the bell icon, and share the video as well so that more people get to know about Bharata First. Do subscribe to our newsletter to get some incisive content. The Bharata First team runs several quizzes. You can participate in them and improve your knowledge. If you like our content, please contribute to keep it alive. A small contribution that you make will be a giant leap for us to keep bringing you this content. Details are in the description. Let me also take this opportunity to inform you about Bharata First Knowledge Center, an initiative that will help each one of you in your competitive exams and transform the way you learn. Go to kc.bharatafirst.com for more details and register now. Experience a whole new way of gaining knowledge. Hundreds are already reaping the benefits of the Knowledge Center. Don't be left behind. Don't miss out. Register right now. There's so much more that we have to offer. All this information along with some must-see recommendations are in the description of the video. Please go through it. Well, it's that time of the week again where we meet a distinguished member of the Indian Civil Service. Today, I have with me a gentleman who has served as an Indian diplomat for 38 years. He was India's High Commissioner to Tanzania, Trinidad and Tobago, and then South Africa. He has also served at the Indian mission to the UN in New York. He is someone whom I first met on the sets of the Rajya Sabha TV studios a few years ago. And since then, he's grown to become a good friend, and I look up to him. It is a pleasure to welcome on UPSC Corner, Mr. Virendra Gupta. Ambassador, welcome to Bharata First.
Well, thanks very much for inviting me. It's always a pleasure to connect with you.
Wonderful. Ambassador, I'm going to take you down memory lane now and try and refresh your memory a little bit. Let's talk about your journey, your UPSC journey and your journey as a diplomat, as a career diplomat. How did it all begin? How did it all begin? What is it that, made you think of a career in the Indian bureaucracy? When did it start?
Well, I was in Gorakhpur and finished my intermediate. At that time, amongst friends, we were talking about the civil service, and I would see, the turbaned orderly with the district magistrate, and that sight really impressed me a lot. And I said, that is the career. I remember in those days, we were all fired by the zeal to serve the country. I don't think, if I can recall amongst my contemporaries, nobody was really aspiring to join the private sector or get into a career which would bring a lot of money. We automatically thought in terms of government service, and civil services obviously were considered to be the best possible option for any young man out of college.
Absolutely. So, Ambassador, you are an alumni of Allahabad University. I've seen several top bureaucrats, especially of your generation, who are from Allahabad University. So did the university have a culture really as far as pushing students towards the civil services?
Absolutely. In fact, I told you that I was in Gorakhpur. My parents were posted in Gorakhpur. But Gorakhpur was not the place to, get the, requisite grooming. So I decided to leave Gorakhpur and go to Allahabad University. In Allahabad University, there was Amarnath Jha Hostel, Dr. Amarnath Jha, which is called Muir Hostel, which was really a factory for the civil service. Almost everyone who got into the hostel, got through the civil service. So I was lucky to have gotten into the Muir Hostel. And then, of course, it's just a question of looking up to your seniors and continuing to prepare.
Absolutely. So seniors played a big role in trying to, in grooming you and pushing you towards that direction and in that journey, isn't it?
Absolutely. And in those days, facility in English was very important. So there was a lot of emphasis given by the seniors, and one followed that lead. And there were a lot of extracurricular activities in our hostel. So I think all of that must have helped. And the seniors would also guide you in what subject to take, how to prepare. Uh, what was very much in vogue in those days, that you took the first attempt for the police service, because that you could do at the age of 20. But I didn't want to, uh, lack of success can be very disappointing, actually. So I was determined to take my civil service exam with 100% full preparation, and not casual look at the exam thing. I finished my master's in 74 when I was under 20, and I had to wait for 2 years to write the civil service exam. Now, I could have appeared for the IPS, taken my first attempt, but I decided against it. And Frank, in those days, I think pretty much the same situation prevails even now. Civil service exam was very preparation intensive. You had to work hard, honestly. So I reckoned that it was very difficult to appear in the civil service if you had taken up a job. So that was also a very critical decision, which my father supported me in, is that I was determined to take my first shot at the civil service before joining any service. So I think that helped also.
So you had that aim and you had that determination and you knew what you wanted and you went after it and you got it. That's fantastic. I mean, that's
Absolutely.
wonderful.
No, I wavered a little bit. I decided after finishing my master's in physics, I routinely applied for UGC scholarship for PhD program. And my father didn't like that idea. He said, look, if you want to pursue academic career, if you want to join the university, by all means, it's a good profession. But he thought that I was interested in civil service. So he said, if I was interested in civil service, I should not, have any distraction. And he dissuaded me from joining any subsequent master's program. He dissuaded me from joining PhD program. He said, look, even if you have to wait for 2 years, just prepare for it. And he had confidence in me, because also what happens when you finish your master's and you're not in a job, then there is the pressure which starts building up on parents. But he was, I must say, very, very supportive.
And I must thank sir as well today, because if not, we would have missed, we wouldn't have had such a wonderful diplomat. And, you probably wouldn't have been in the Indian diplomacy. So I thank sir today for having pushed you towards the Indian civil service, because 38 years of service to the nation and 38 years of great service. I'm going to talk about that as well in detail, because we have to talk about the setting up of the Israel embassy and the big part that you played in that.
I'll come. Interesting aspects of my career.
Yeah, I'll come to that in just a bit. So, Ambassador, as far as your preparation was concerned, now we know that things have changed drastically and dramatically. You have coaching institutes, you have aspirants and students being fed what they need and what they want. So it's become more like a very mechanized way of learning. How was it when you were preparing in those days? I mean, was it mechanized? What was it like? Who were your best friends along this journey?
Well, there is dynamics in every thing that you do. If you want to play a game, there is dynamics. So cracking civil service exam there was a dynamics to it, and it was important to understand it. And I think being in the Muir hostel in Allahabad University helped me to understand it. So I went with science subjects. I'd done physics, chemistry, and maths. So I did physics and maths, and I think I was pretty good at maths. So I scored good numbers, good marks in those papers. I had taken a history paper, Great Mughals, medieval history. So that to help me with the higher papers. And I think one went about the preparation. There were a lot of coaching institutes. I joined one of the coaching institutes to help me groom with the other aspects, not my main subjects, not my science subjects, but in how to write a précis and how to write an essay, and I think one went about it. Nothing much has changed. I have huge issues against how the civil service recruitment is undertaken, because it is so much capital intensive, preparation intensive, that I don't think it is designed to choose the best candidates. In those days when I was trying to get into any good career, I gave many exams. I first got into the State Bank of India, probationary officer. And to date, I regard that as one of the best exams. That decidedly selects the best students. And no wonder, in fact, in our Foreign Service batch of 20, there were at least 7 or 8 people who had served earlier at the State Bank. So I think that was a very good exam, and that you could literally walk into that exam. There was objective type tests. There was group discussion at the interview level. There was personal interview. So I think without any preparation, and how the civil service should do is to encourage people to move laterally. You've got into a service and then you want to move across to the better civil service, you should be able to do that. But given how things are, preparatory exam and then main exam, and there's too much.
Absolutely. So, Ambassador, when you got into the service, what was that feeling like? Because finally your dream and your goals were falling into place.
Well, very funnily enough, after I dropped State Bank of India, I left the State Bank of India and joined the Forest Service for a few months. When I was in Dehradun at the Forest College Academy, the civil service exam results were declared. We were in Dehradun and we had no access to what the result was. So we called people in Delhi to look at the results. And I was told that I was 23 or 27, I don't remember, on the combined merit list, which meant that I would get into the Foreign Service. I'd given Foreign Service as my first preference without knowing anything about the Foreign Service. This was just a peer pressure. We were sitting amongst friends, and before writing the exam, I had given IS as my first preference. Then I changed it to make it to the Foreign Service, because everybody told me that it was fashionable. People gave Foreign Service as the first preference because there must be something in it. You get to represent your country, you get to fly your flag, you get to meet the Prime Minister and the President of other countries. So I found it glamorous enough. In those days, even the lure of foreign travel itself, and one thing that was made very clear to me, that look, if you want to lead an honest life, and not get attracted by the lure of money, which many services offered, Foreign Service was the best option. Because Foreign Service, you could remain honest in your career and still make comfortable amount of money. So I think because of all these reasons, we all figured out, some of our friends, and I gave Foreign Service as my first preference. So the first thought that struck me is that, now I will get into the Foreign Service. Although I had aspired and I had dreamed of IS, because what began my journey was that turbaned Ardali with the district magistrate. And suddenly I thought, because I never expected that I will do so well in the exam. And I was reasonably sure that, if with some good luck, I will get into the IS. Otherwise, I'll make it into the civil service. That there was no doubt in my mind. So anyway, these things happen. It's a matter of chance that I got into the Foreign Service, but I don't regret it. I had a wonderful outing in the Foreign Service.
Absolutely. And talking about your outing in the Foreign Service, Ambassador, where was your first posting and what was that like?
Well, I went to, in our service, we are allotted languages. I was allotted Persian language. So in order to learn Persian, I would go to Tehran, and Persian language is very much based on that Urdu script. So I started learning Urdu, and I spent some time in learning Urdu on a purely informal basis, because I thought that would help me. But just as I was about to leave Delhi after finishing 2 years of training in India for Tehran. Iran was gripped in the midst of the violence, and our ambassador suggested that it was not the opportune time for a probationer to arrive in Tehran to learn the language. So I was diverted to Kathmandu. To cut the longest story short, my language was changed from Persian to Nepalese, which was fun, but it was a waste of time because Nepalese is pretty much like Hindi. And apart from learning the language at Tribhuvan University, which took me only just a few months, I was inducted into the embassy work. And embassy work, mission work, is the most interesting in our neighboring missions. So I think I was fortunate to have received my grounding and training in the embassy work in one of our neighboring missions.
Wonderful. So let's move ahead, Ambassador, and talk about an interesting aspect of setting up the embassy in Israel. That's an interesting aspect of your career, and you already mentioned that is something that has been the most challenging and most important aspects of your career as well. Why don't we speak about that? How was that like?
Well, that was wonderful in every respect. Firstly, it was challenging. It was a path-breaking development in our diplomacy. A lot of people were asking for it, but the government, for some reason or the other, mainly political reasons, was dilly-dallying, delaying the whole thing. And curiously enough, when Foreign Secretary J.N. Dixit asked me to go to Israel, and he said, well, think about it, get back to him the next day. We had no idea of what Israel would be like because we had no contacts with Israel. Prior to that, I had served in New York. And in New York, you only came across Hasidic Jews, those radical Jews, which wasn't a very gainly sight. It kind of put you off in a sense. And we were not maintaining any contacts with the Jewish or Israeli diplomats. So I spoke to my wife, and she was a bit shocked. She said, "Oh, well, Israel, why can't you say no to the foreign secretary?" And I said, "Look, foreign secretary has. It's just a matter of courtesy at his level that he said that I should come back to him the next day. But I know that even if I don't like that, my answer has to be yes. I can't tell the foreign secretary no. So it's just that he's given me that much of rope. So I have to say yes." And we went about it. So I reluctantly kind of accepted the posting to Israel. And then I asked one of the senior officials in the MEA as to what my mandate would be. He said, "Look, we are opening the mission under a lot of pressure. We don't want to make waves. So you keep a very low profile. And you do nothing. You just sit there." Now, I found that mandate very difficult to follow. So I went back to the foreign secretary. And I said, "Sir, I've been told, this is what I've been told would be my mandate. And it'd be very difficult. Would you like to consider somebody else who might fit the bill better?" So he understood my dilemma and my anguish at having been given that kind of mandate. So he said, no, don't. I think you misunderstood. Maybe that person was not able to explain this appropriately to you. You understand the political sensitivities, of course, but keep your ears and eyes open. We know very little about Israel, so we would depend a great deal on your inputs. Tell us about the political situation. Tell us about the political situation in the Middle East, and keep open your mind to what are the opportunities for bilateral interaction. And so I think that was slightly better. And I went to Israel. I think the Israeli government lapped me up in a sense that the kind of welcome that I received, the kind of warmth that I received Subsequently, I served for nearly 11 years as ambassador in different countries. And I don't think the kind of warmth that I received in Israel was matched anywhere else, even as an ambassador. Uh, One of the incidents I would narrate, after about 7-8 months, our ambassador arrived. He had to wait for 1 or 2 months to present his credentials. But as is the customary, even before presenting credentials, you meet the foreign minister. So ambassador went to meet Shimon Peres, a great statesman, and what sense of humor did he have? And as number two, so I'd opened the mission as Charge d'Affaires, and then when the ambassador arrived, I was deputy chief of mission. So I went accompanied ambassador for meeting with Shimon Peres. Now, as the protocol people took us to Shimon Peres's room, and he sat in a large, long room. And when the door opened and the protocol people ushered us in, Shimon Peres saw the ambassador and saw me. And as he saw both of us, he got up from his desk, walked forward, and then from a distance he said, "Oh, hello, Mr. Gupta." And then he walked closer and he said, "Of course, welcome, ambassador, and you will please forgive me." He said that he knows that he's committed a faux pas, a diplomatic faux pas, in not having greeted the ambassador first. But he told the ambassador, he asked ambassador for his forgiveness and said that, you would allow us that much of discretion. That for us, Mr. Gupta is so dear that he's the first Indian diplomat and he'll always outrank everybody else in Israel. And at that remark, I was looking very sheepishly at my ambassador, and I thought that my career would be ruined. My ambassador would be so upset and angry with me that he will give me hell. But I think Ambassador P.K. Singh, he was such a noble soul, he's no more. But he took it in his stride. And instead of feeling jealous or feeling angry with me, after the meeting, he complimented me. He said, look, you must have obviously done so much of good work that even Deputy Prime Minister complimented you. So I think what he was going to do, he told me that he will do no work and that he will leave me to do all the work. But from now on, all the credit would be his. So I think it was such an encouraging environment that both Israeli government provided and the kind of support that my ambassador provided to me in the mission. I never felt, I always thought that the mission in Israel, the first mission in Israel was my own mission. And, the Israelis, I must tell you another thing, is that, however laid back you might have been, if you served in Israel, I think they would take that away from you. Typically, if you would ask for a meeting in any government, in any place, you would ask for a meeting with the Director General or foreign or minister. So we would ask for a meeting. We were in Tel Aviv. Most of the government ministries were in Jerusalem, and my secretary would say that Charge d'Affaires was coming to Jerusalem on Wednesday, and that would it be possible to meet the agriculture minister? So the agriculture minister's office would say that no, minister is not free on Wednesday, but he could meet him on Monday. He could meet him on 2 days earlier. Now, nowhere have I seen, no government have I seen. Even Indian ministers, if a diplomat, if an ambassador or Charge d'Affaires were to ask for a meeting, they would say Wednesday is not free, but how's about next Monday? These guys did not. These guys said, no, Wednesday is not free, but how's about this Monday, 2 days prior to what I was asking for? And that was remarkable because, as if you were making up for the lost time.
Thank you, Ambassador, for sharing those beautiful anecdotes. It makes us feel so much more a part of your journey as well. And it feels like we were actually there and, we get to know the Israelis so much more better as well. Thank you so very much. So moving on from there now, Ambassador, so that I'm sure was the highlight for you as far as your career is concerned. But there was much more to come. Like you spoke about yourself, the High Commissioner to three nations back to back, that is Tanzania, Trinidad and Tobago, and South Africa. So what was that like? Anything that you can recall, anything that you would like to share with us with regards to you being the High Commissioner to these three nations, and what really stood out for you?
Well, the first mission that I got was in Tanzania. After finishing my posting from Israel, I went to Egypt. And then from there, I went as the head of mission in Tanzania. Now, for any diplomat in his journey, the posting as head of mission, the first posting as head of mission is really a kind of game changer, and something that you've been looking forward to. You don't have to play second fiddle. You set up the agenda, you set up the pace, and you decide on how to utilize your resources. I was lucky to have been given Tanzania as my first assignment as head of mission, because we have a fairly significant relationship with Tanzania. Sizable Indian community, not very large in numbers, but very influential. About 90,000 people people of Indian origin, Hindus and Muslims and different denomination. I found that on the trading list, we were number 5 on Tanzania's overall trading list. Countries ahead of us were China, UK, Kenya, and South Africa. And we were number 5. So I told, now when I went there, I found the number 2 of I had a very capable number 2, Ambassador Navdeep Suri, later on, but he was my number 2, and he was doing political work. Now, I didn't see much merit in political work in Tanzania, because we had bipartisan support. Everybody in Tanzania supported us, and everybody in India supported Tanzania. So there was no point in wasting my best resource in the political work. So I moved him out of political work and I put him into the commercial section, and reorganized the mission. And I told Navdeep, I told my deputy, I said, together, you are in the commercial section and I would spend at least 50% of my time for commercial work. Together, both of us take up a challenge. And the challenge was that to take India to number 1 trading position. And I said, I don't want to get myself 3-year deadline, because my posting is for 3 years, but his tenure left was only 2 years. I said, let's do a target of 2 years. And we achieved it, which was my crowning achievement, which made me so happy. We worked hard. We organized trade delegations, exhibitions, but I also took the help of the Indian community. In that, there were Ethnashri community, Muslim community, 12ers they are called, Shias, of the sect of Shias. And I said to my mission that I will connect with them and take their help in leveraging a better relationship with India. So somebody told me that no, Ambassador, they are more towards Pakistan. When there is a match between India and Pakistan, they clap for Pakistan. So I said, I have no difficulty. They can. So I met some of their leaders and I told them, look, we have no difficulty in your going to Karachi or your clapping for Pakistan. But when you go to Karachi, think of options to visit Bombay also. And there are things that we might be able to offer which Pakistan doesn't offer. And reaching out to them, they opened up to us. And I must say that the Ethnashri community played a very key role in helping us create that kind of expanded commercial linkages with Tanzania.
Absolutely. That's wonderful, Ambassador. Wonderful to know this. Wonderful to be listening to these stories from the horse's mouth itself, and it makes us so much more wiser about these things, and keeps us so very well informed. From there, Ambassador, Trinidad and Tobago, small little West Indian nation. We know them only because of the West Indies team and the players that the West Indies has brought out of there. What stood out for you there? Because even in the West Indies, in the Caribbean islands, we have a sizable Indian population, and our relations have been robust over the years.
Absolutely. I mean, Trinidad is the richest Caribbean country with per capita income of almost more than $10,000. They are oil and gas rich country. Now, it may be a small country, but a very distinctive feature was that Indians constituted the largest ethnic group, and they roughly constituted 50% of the country. So, as you can imagine, being an Indian ambassador in Trinidad was something of very special prerogative. At the same time, one had to conduct oneself with a lot of sensitivity and with a lot of circumspection, because everything that you did was subject to scrutiny. The Indian community will scrutinize every action from the standpoint of would it conform to the Indian culture. And I think it was so easy, tempting to get drawn into the local politics. And how would you safeguard yourself? Because the temptation was that most Indian ambassadors would tend to regard themselves as ambassador to the Indian community, which was not the case, because you were Indian ambassador to the country, and you had to maintain relationship with the Indian community, but relationship also with the government. And repeatedly, occasion after occasion, I was faced with a dilemma, and it was always an exercise. You had to deftly handle, tactfully handle the situations. I must tell you one big incident right in the beginning. In Trinidad, there used to be carnival. I think next to the carnival in Brazil, the next best carnival, probably some people even regard as the best carnival, which takes place, was in Trinidad, because whereas in Brazil, carnival is a show, but in Trinidad, carnival is a very participative thing. And there would be bands, there would be music, and the bands would go on the streets. You dance on the streets and participate as with the masks and all, masquerade. So you're not in your this thing. You hide your face and walk around. That was the everybody used to do it. So when we went there, some of our friends suggested that we must participate. It was great fun. So we signed up, and when we played mass, the Sanatan Dharma Mahasabha people got to know that Indian ambassador played mass, and they protested at the Indian High Commission, saying that all these years they had been canvassing that carnival was against Indian culture and that Indian community must boycott. And I taken the sail out of their wind out of their sail by Indian ambassador participating in this. So all this argument that this was against Indian culture, it stood nowhere. And but I had to sort it out. But it helped me a great deal, with the leadership, with the Afro-Trinidadian community, and that was a very clear vindication that I was not going to remain restricted to the people of Indian origin or Indian community, that I would look at things very objectively. I tried to promote business connections. And I think all of that, it's again a very memorable assignment, because to be in a place where 50% people were of Indian origin, and for the Indian origin people, the Girmitiyas, the diasporas, they feel a great sense of emotional and attachment, great sense of cultural affinity, great sense of warmth. And they look upon Indian ambassador not merely as a functionary, not merely as an official of the government of India, but as someone who's come from their home. So you get that kind of feeling, that they love you and cherish you, not merely as a representative of the government of India. That is official. But apart from the official connection, they think of you as somebody who's come from India, from their home, and to establish that connection. It is a most unique feeling, to be in one of these countries.
Amazing, amazing. And finally, Ambassador, South Africa. Let's not forget South Africa.
Well, South Africa is also a very special relationship, a very extensive, commercial and economic context. During the apartheid, and of course, Mahatma Gandhi spent more than 20 years in South Africa. So on all these, aspects, there was linkages, there were connections with South Africa. For me, again, it was very, very special because before I went to South Africa, when I was in New York, I served as the rapporteur of the UN Special Committee Against Apartheid. And we played a critical role in orchestrating the return of democratic government and demise of apartheid. And we were very active, actually. We used to routinely, regularly meet the leaders out of South Africa. So when I went there, and I met a lot of ministers and high dignitaries, and I told them that, look, if I overstep my diplomatic boundaries, I should be forgiven, because I was not only the Indian ambassador, but I also looked upon my role as a former comrade in arms. I used to be their collaborator. And I was also a fighter for against apartheid, and there were certain things which I was not very comfortable when I went to South Africa, and I questioned the leaders. I said, look, something that we thought should have happened by this time, and why is it not happening? But please, it is not questioning as an Indian diplomat, because I know that this is not for me to raise these issues, but as someone who was deeply associated with the transition of democracy and end of apartheid in South Africa, sometimes I felt constrained. Sometimes I felt aggrieved that things were not happening the way they should have happened in South Africa.
Absolutely. And finally, before I let you go, Ambassador, any words of advice or any words of wisdom that you'd like to share with youngsters who would like to follow in your footsteps?
Well, civil service is a good career. And I think a lot of safety nets have been built. You have to be very objective and honest to yourself. I think there is a lot of premium attached to being honest and being objective. Do your work diligently once you join the civil service. And, I find that amongst a lot of youngsters or people who are looking to prepare for the civil service, they are only looking at the broad canvas, the kind of platform that would be provided for serving the country, which is oftentimes not the case. Because when you start off your career, you are given a very limited mandate. And you have to pursue that mandate. You have to have eye for detail. You have to dot the I's and cross the T's. Because if you don't do that, then you miss out on things, and things can easily go wrong. So I think we all have to wait for our turn. The civil services would offer you an opportunity to rise appropriately, but you have to work diligently your way up the ladder. And I think this is extremely important to remember. Also, if you remember that, then your time will come when you will be able to play that overview role. But if you are expecting to play an overview role right in the beginning, then only disappointment will get to you.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Ambassador, for your time and for sharing all those beautiful anecdotes with us. It was really amazing hearing those stories from you, and a pleasure having you here on Bharata First. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Frank. It was always a pleasure. Thank you.
But before I go, once again, let me remind you to like the video, subscribe, hit the bell icon, and share the video as well so that more people get to know about Bharata First. Do subscribe to our newsletter to get some incisive content. The Bharata First team runs several quizzes. You can participate in them and improve your knowledge. If you like our content, please contribute to keep it alive. Details are in the description. Let me also take this opportunity to inform you about Bharata First Knowledge Center. It's an initiative that will help each one of you in your competitive exams and transform the way you learn. Go to kc.bharatafirst.com for more details and register now. Experience a whole new way of gaining knowledge. Hundreds are already reaping the benefits of the Knowledge Center. Don't be left behind. Don't miss out. Register right now. There's so much more that we have to offer here at the Knowledge Center. All this information, along with some must-see recommendations, are in the description of the video. Please go through it. That's it from me. See you again next time.